in comment of that, it was related to the Mazars reports specifically. Did you just say that? Right. Okay. It was in relation to the formatting of the Mazars reports and the fact that the some of the text appeared rather slim, and it wasn't all on screen as it does appear on the iPad. That was the Mazars.
Okay. Do we want to pick that up as an item with the Mazars report then, if it's still not correct, or if it's not, Councillor?
My point, Chair, was simply that could it be noted so it can be actioned in due course, if that's possible?
No.
And the fact that it wasn't in the minutes was perhaps why it hadn't been, or there may be a more significant story behind that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take that as an action. Thank you very much. Do I have anyone in support of the previous meeting's minutes? Thank you, Councillor Ripton. Any seconder? Thanks to Councillor Bates. And then can I put it to the vote, please? All those for? All those against? And those in abstention, please. Thank you very much. Thank you. On to item number 3, no public participation today. Number 4, any declarations of interest? I don't believe we've had any, or anyone? No. No questions of pursuant to rule of procedure number 15. And then on to item number 6, the external audit strategy memorandum for the financial year ending 31st of March 25. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Chair. So I will start by, hope you can hear me. I will start picking up on that point on the format of the report, because that is something that I did follow up on following the meetings. I know it had been brought up actually in 2 consecutive meetings, and it's something that myself and Karen have discussed. I'm afraid that I cannot change the actual format of the report because it's a centralised template, but there could be maybe other ways that we could look at making it more readable on an iPad, for example, with locking rotation. So we've looked into that, and I can pick it up again, but I want it to be noted that I have followed up with Councillor Hughes and Karen, and we are trying to make it more legible for you on your iPad. So that's first thing to note. Okay then, so we are presenting our external strategy memorandum, which is our jargon for our audit plan for the year 24-25. A lot of the content of this report was already presented to members in the April edition of this committee under the form of a progress report. So we issued a progress report at that point in time because we didn't want to issue our audit plan until we had completed a sufficient amount of planning work, but we now are in a position to issue our formal audit plan for the year ended 31st of March 2025. However, there have not been any significant changes to the approach as communicated in that April meeting. So we're looking at the same risks, with the additional risk this year being on the implementation of IFRS 16, which is the leases standard. That has not changed. The timeline is also very similar to what was communicated in April, but also very similar to last year. A slight difference this year is that we are now reporting under the 2024 Code of Audit Practice, the NAO. So it's very similar to the 2020 Code of Audit Practice, but there are some differences with timelines. So we are now, as is noted on page, I believe, apologies, I've gone off it, but when we talk about so on page 42 of your packs, it talks about changes introduced by the 2024 Code of Audit Practice. So the main difference there that's picked out is that we have to issue our draft auditor's annual report. So that's the report that contains our value for money commentary and conclusions. We have to present that in draft form to the council, whether we have finished the work or not, by 30th of November. So that's a new point to add. We do not at this stage anticipate any issues in meeting that deadline, and indeed work is already underway to complete our value for money work. Since the last meeting, when we presented our progress report, we have been in regular contact with the finance team, with Karen and Gemma. We have discussed dates, and also we have discussed progress on the draft accounts, which should be noted that are not yet published. So as long as we can get the draft accounts on time, and that we continue our good communication with the council, and we receive all our supporting working papers in time, we're not currently anticipating any issues in meeting the timeline as presented in this report. I would welcome any questions that anyone has on the audit or the report more generally. And I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Any questions from the floor? Thank you, Councillor Dobbs. You can press your button, by the way, and then it queues you up. So just to tell you for future.
Technology. Thank you. Lots of naive questions from me tonight because I'm only a sub, so I'm doing a bit of catch up. I had a look at the 2024 report, had to print it out so I could read it properly. There's very little change. Is that good or is it bad? I mean, some of the things are almost word for word and the formatting is slightly different. I mean, is this good? This is what we should expect when we're doing well? Or
could you be more specific, sorry, on which parts have not changed and why that would be worrying?
right, the risk table particularly, where there's one new extra section because the legislation's changed, and then there's 3 others which are virtually the same as they were in 2024. One area of risk, fraud in valuation, has disappeared, but otherwise the text is essentially the same. Now, is that good going, bad going, what we should expect, not what we should expect?
No, that's a very good question. I'd say that's good going. So I can tell you that on every single council that we audit, we have virtually the same risks. You will see on much bigger complex councils, for example, when we took on in 23-24, the PSAA contract rotated, so we took on a lot of new councils and released some councils as happens every 5 years. And there's some councils there that were very complex and there have been what we call backstopped for several years. We had additional risks on those councils. So that would be a situation where you would see different risks. But in general, every council that I work on, I've got 5 at the moment this year, has the same risks. So including so you have the management override of controls, which is mandatory on all audits. So whether they be in private sector or in public sector, it's in the international standards on auditing that we have to have that as a risk. Likewise, on all councils that have a material defined benefit pension obligation or assets, we have to have a significant risk on that, and the same goes for PPE and investment properties, that valuation risk. If for whatever reason on a council those balances are not material, which is quite rare, then we wouldn't have that as a risk. But so that's why we have those 3, and then on all councils this year that have any leased in assets that will be affected by this IFRS 16, we have this enhanced risk on IFRS 16. So does that answer your question?
If I may, Chair, yes, in part, but the planned response, the fact that the planned response is more or less the same, is that fine?
Yes, we have established work programmes for things that come down to us from our central technical teams. They are updated each year, but the underlying standards for the valuation of, for example, property, plant and equipment and investment properties have not changed from last year. So that's why our work programme is very, very similar. Same goes for our pensions work programme. We have standardised tests that we work through, which have not changed from last year. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Jenny. Any further questions from the floor, Councillor Dobbs? Sorry, Councillor Ripton.
Thank you. It was in relation to the pension liability. I know that's a sort of perennial challenge, but obviously in a falling interest rate market, I guess there is the potential for a larger or future capital exposure. Do you have any sense as to council's exposure on that topic at this stage?
So I couldn't comment on actuaries. I couldn't comment on future interest rate exposure, and that's outside the scope of our audit. However, your point is right, and that's evidenced by the fact that the council has actually had a surplus on its defined benefit obligation / asset for the last, I believe this is going to be the 3rd year. So there are different tests because there are different accounting rules for how you can recognise a surplus on the balance sheet compared to a net liability. So that's something that we're going to look again this year. But I think we're well practiced now on both sides. But for the other point, I couldn't comment. That's a bit outside the scope of the audit.
Thank you, Jenny. Any further questions from the floor at all? Do I have any people with proposers? Councillor Ripton. And second, Councillor Shelley. Put that to the vote. Everyone for them, please. Just to confirm that's unanimous. Right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. On to item number 7, internal audit. Thank you. internal audit progress update 24-25. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Jenny.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is my usual progress report, and it details the audits we've issued since the committee last met, and it's the final progress report in respect of the 24-25 financial year. So if you look at Appendix 1, we've just issued the 2 reports which relate to insurance and cyber security. Both of those received reasonable assurance, which we see as being positive assurance. We don't have any great concerns. Just in terms of cyber security, although we've given reasonable assurance, we're not given a guarantee there won't be attack, because nobody can do that. In terms, there's always new threats coming along, but the governance arrangements are satisfactory. We've made some recommendations for improvements. Appendix 2, that details the final picture for 24-25, the audits we've deferred and the ones we've completed, and that's also covered in the annual report, which is next on the agenda. We have started work on the 25-26 audit plan. We've issued 2 reports, and I'll report on those next time we come back. The committee were interested in the health and safety audit last time because we deferred that, and it's a higher risk audit. We have completed that audit now, and we have been able to give it reasonable assurance. We may revisit it next year because you have got a relatively new health and safety officer, and they've got an action plan in place. So we may just revisit it next year to make sure that those actions are happening. And the recommendation then is that the report be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor? Councillor Ripton.
Thank you, Chair. I may have asked this question before, so apologies, but I noticed that the maternity leave has meant deferring some work, and one of those items of work, I think, is the sort of recruitment and retention piece. But I'm also conscious that recruitment and retention has been a real challenge for this. Well, it continues to be a real challenge for the council. So the question, and I think I've asked this before, is there an executive response that can marry up why we seem to be deferring something so important as recruitment and retention? Because I'm not, as important as maternity leave is, I'm not sure it's a reason necessarily to sort of take our foot off the gas from a risk management point of view.
I mean, in terms of the audit, we look at more of the sort of processes and procedures in place, and that they're adequate and recovered in terms of references and validity to work and that sort of thing. I suppose it's a wider issue for management in terms of the situation we've been able to recruit.
And I guess that's part of my question is optically it doesn't look good, but perhaps if we understood what it meant, it might be, or there might be a valid reason, but given recruitment and retention is such a challenge, it just doesn't sit well with me that we maybe push that one into the longer grass. But I welcome your thoughts on how we might manage that.
It is one we could try and do as soon as possible this year. Obviously, we haven't done it last year now, but we do. In comparison to risk of other areas, I guess we saw it as a medium and one that we could defer because there are good systems and processes in place when we've looked at it previously. But I'll talk to my senior auditor and we'll see if we can do that as soon as possible.
Is that right, Councillor? Does that answer your question? Yes, because I think ironically maternity leave is feeding into a retention thing, and it's very self there, answering all the audits. But no, that's fine, understood. Any further questions from councillors? Any proposals? Councillor Bates?
Report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else to second? Councillor Burford, I have a second. And can I have all those voting for the report, please? Just confirm that is all unanimous. Thank you very much, Jenny. Can we move on to item number 8, the Internal Audit Annual Report? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So this report provides a summary of the work we've undertaken in comparison to the audit plan for 24-25, and it also provides my opinion on the council's overall governance, risk and control arrangements. So the content of the report is as required by the public sector internal audit standards, which were appropriate for the 24-25 financial year. So we did complete 77% of the audit plan, which does enable me to provide an opinion. The table at paragraph 2.1 shows that we issued 14 reports during the year, and they all fell into the substantial and reasonable assurance category. So that's our top two categories, and we see that as sort of very positive results. All of these reports have been included in our progress reports during the year. And Appendix 1, that details all of the 14 reports and the opinion that was provided. So you'll be pleased to note that in the areas we looked at, we didn't identify any fraud issues. We also provide details of our performance indicators during the year. So we had a target of 75% of the audit plan to complete, and that was actually exceeded sort of despite having a member of staff on maternity leave. And you can see that the customer satisfaction levels with the audit service are extremely high. So paragraphs 4.1 to 4.10 detail the overall conclusion on the adequacy of the Council's governance, risk and control arrangements. So I'm happy to say that I can provide reasonable assurance on that framework during the year. And that's also supported by other assurances, things like the work of the risk management group, the fact that we're public sector network compliant, and also the work of external audit. So we do consider the internal issues arising that may need inclusion in the annual governance statement. So this year, there's no issues directly arising that need including, but you will note in the annual governance statement there is some referral to outstanding audit recommendations that still need to be implemented. So Appendix 2 of the report, that provides full comparison of planned work against completed work. And for the audits we haven't completed, they've been incorporated into future years' work. Appendix 3 is our Quality and Assurance Improvement Programme. And this helps to ensure that we're meeting public sector internal audit standards and our Code of Ethics. It includes an update on the improvement plan for 24-25. And also the new improvement plan that we've got that we're working towards achieving the global internal audit standards in full. I can also confirm our independence. I have a direct reporting line to the 151 officer and also to this committee. So the recommendation is the 24-25 internal audit report and overall assurance opinion is accepted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions from the floor? Councillor Dobbs. Oh, Councillor Bottle first. Apologies.
Okay, sorry about the bit. Oh, right, I'm pressing again. There we go. Yeah, sorry about that. Hi, Jenny. I think I probably should know this, but when you do an internal audit report for Ashbourne Reborn, which is a project which is paid for by an external source, i.e. the government, can we charge for your work to that supply of funds, or do we actually have to cover that ourselves?
We don't charge for it, no. It's part of your audit plan and I suppose part of the governance arrangements of the council being the accountable body and looking after that project.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I just wanted to be part of the operating costs of the business. Councillor Dobbs.
Thank you, Chair. My question is about the customer feedback and the customer satisfaction survey. Could you just help me here? Who is the customer in this respect and how does the survey work? Thank you.
The customer is the managers that we audit. So after we've completed each audit, when I issue the audit report, I also send out a customer satisfaction survey. So the managers complete those and return them.
So just a quick supplementary. And so this 99% satisfaction, it based on a return rate of?
I can't give you the exact figures, but I think it's about 50%.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions from the floor? Can I have a proposer then? If Councillor Ripton, thank you very much. And do I have a seconder at all? Councillor Shelley, thank you very much. I'm going to put to the vote then, please. Everyone for? Thank you very much. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jenny. And on to item number 9, the annual governance statement, please, which I believe is coming from Karen.
Thank you, Chair. So the report sets out the reasons why we need to prepare an annual governance statement. Obviously, there's a legislative reason we have to do it, but there are also good reasons in terms of governance why we would want to do it. The report explains why it's an important statement and what it tells us. So the annual governance statement for 24-25 is shown in Appendix 1 to the report. The main part of it is shown in Part 3, and in that part you can see that I've tested various areas of governance to see whether we comply with our own corporate code of governance. And I've shown areas of good practice with a tick, a green tick, and I've shown areas where I feel improvements could be made with a yellow triangle. Where there were any areas that I'm significantly concerned about and I feel that they need to be raised to members, they would be picked up in the action plan in Part 6 of the report. So Part 6 of the report, the action plan, is shown on pages 130 to 132 of the agenda pack. The first part of that shows progress against last year's, the actions identified in last year's plan. And the second part shows the governance issues highlighted this year. So all 5 items that were in last year's action plan have been fully or substantially completed. And for 24-25, this year's review, only one significant governance issue has been identified. That relates to the Council's financial position and the forecast budget gap over the coming years. That position is still to be addressed, and we're awaiting the announcement of the government's funding reforms. That's now expected to be in the autumn, and there's currently a government consultation underway. The annual governance statement action plan, as I've said, is shown on page 132 of the agenda pack. And if members would like to know more and understand more about the financial sustainability issue, I'd refer you to the medium-term financial strategy that was approved by Council in March. Once approved, the annual governance statement needs to be signed by the leader and chief executive, and we'll include it in the draft statement of accounts for 24-25. We must review it again prior to the audit opinion being issued to ensure that it's still up to date at that stage. And we'll bring it back to committee at that time if any changes are required prior to the approval of the accounts by this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions from the floor? Mr. Dobbs?
Sorry, me again. If I can make a comment and then 3 questions. They're fairly small, Karen, if you'll bear with me. The first is that I must confess, I found reading this with the icons for the ticks and the exclamation mark in the triangle a little misleading insofar you could have a tick and then it might be followed by several sub-paragraphs. Did the tick refer to all of them? It was apparent that sometimes it did, but you didn't know. And equally, I thought the exclamation mark actually could perhaps refer to the following paragraph, but then there were actually several bits of good news, which would seem to have be deserving of a tick. So if I wanted to make a suggestion, I think perhaps another way of communicating simply this message might be more appropriate. It tends to also sort of shift the not pagination exactly, but the alignment of the columns out a bit. So just a comment. I mean, when I first looked at it, I thought, goodness me, all these warning triangles help. But it isn't that at all. In fact, there's loads of good news, some of which apparently seems to have a warning triangle lurking close, and you don't know quite whether it's good news or bad news. That's the comment. On page 108, and you'll say, he would say this, wouldn't he? There's a little bit about the air quality action plan in Ashbourne, which says that it gets a green tick, which again maybe is open to debate, but it says 2 of the 7 actions have been completed. I know one of them, we cut down the trees. What was the other one? Do you know off the top of your head? Sorry if you don't.
No, that text was provided by the environmental health team.
Okay.
So I don't know the detail behind it. Sorry.
Okay.
Going back to your comment, yeah, I take that on board. I did try to make sure that where I'd put a tick or a warning, all the subsequent sections did follow that convention and relate to whatever the symbol was. But I will try to review the format for next year.
Thank you. The page 110, page 110, I think it is, it talks about a series of public consultations, several, all bullet pointed. These presumably are issued by different departments. Is there any sort of way in which these consultations are fed back in to check the effectiveness of them, their accuracy? Is there a sort of a single policy with regard to consultations? You may know this is a line for scrutiny at the moment, and I'm the member of scrutiny who's chasing that. So if you could give me some guidance on that, or what the current position is.
I'm not that familiar with it, but I am aware that there is a consultation and engagement strategy, and also we have a consultation and engagement officer who supplied the list, and she generally coordinates consultation.
Thank you. And finally, on page 121, it says, this is just how the council operates, day-to-day decisions. Most day-to-day decisions are made by policy committees. I hadn't really noticed that. I know it was what it said last year, but I think we may be looking at a document later on where it almost definitely doesn't say that. These are things delegated to officers. Thank you.
I'll review that for next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the floor? Do I have a proposer at all? Councillor Ripton? Do I have a seconder at all? Councillor Dobbs, thank you very much. Could I have all them voting for the paper, please? And both recommendations. Thank you very much. It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. On to item number 10, risk management annual report and updated risk management policy and strategy. Please.
Thank you, Chair. So this report describes the Council's risk management processes and also the working practices relating to risk management. So these are intended to ensure that risk management arrangements continue to be effective, timely and fit for purpose, and that they provide the Council with the correct levels of insight and support in relation to its risk exposure. So part 2 of the report sets out the key issues for risk management, and chart 1 shows the scores currently shown on the Council's risk register alongside the target risks. Appendix 2 provides further information about the risks, and it shows mitigating actions for each of these risks to indicate what steps are necessary to take the risk from the current score to the target score. Some of the target scores reflect the fact that there are factors outside the Council's control, or that it would be excessively costly to remove the risk entirely. So that's why there are target scores and they're not all 0. The report also asks members to approve an updated risk management policy and strategy, shown at Appendix 1. The revisions to the document reflect changes to the organisation, structure, processes and procedures. I've also included a new section on risk appetite in part 1.6 of the strategy, and that starts on page 151 of the agenda pack. So risk appetite is defined as the amount and type of risk that the organisation is willing to pursue, retain or take. The strategy indicates that given the Council's delivering essential services, sometimes to vulnerable people, and spending public money, so it generally has a low appetite for risk. Well appetite might be low. Sometimes we do tolerate higher risks. For example, where as I've said, the cost might be extremely excessive. Sorry, no, not where the cost, where it might be impractical to address the risk and remove it entirely. I hope that the report and the risk management policy and strategy gives members a better understanding of the risk management processes and how we use it to ensure that our priorities are delivered. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Do I have any questions from the floor on this one? Councillor Ripton.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Karen. Just for clarification, really, on the chart where you've got current and target, I think having read the sort of table later on, I think what we mean by target is actually the residual after measures have been applied. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, because I guess when I saw target, I was expecting three numbers, as in current, residual, and whether we were within target, which would have been like an appetite for risk. But I wasn't sure what we meant by target. Does that make sense?
Yes, we can retitle it residual risk in future, perhaps. We've always called it the target risk here, but it is the residual risk.
Yeah, I guess I was trying to understand whether we were over or above, over or under an appetite in the form of a target, if that makes sense. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dobbs.
Thank you. Thank you for the report, which is gone out of its way to try to clarify what is quite a difficult area, I imagine. Just a small point. I guess there's a reversal of titles on your report pages 17, 18, our report pages 159, 160. I think impact and risk are interchanged. Would I be right?
Sorry, could you repeat those page numbers, please?
It's your page 17, our page 159, Appendix B, risk scoring matrix. And then you've got impact scores, but they are actually the likelihood, aren't they? And then the likelihood is the impact. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. I put the wrong headings. Yeah.
Well, otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions from the floor at all? No? Then can I find a proposer? Oh, Councillor Dobbs, I have a proposer. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Butcher, was that? Yes, Councillor Butcher. Thank you very much. Have all those for then, please? Thank you very much. It's unanimous. Thank you, Karen. On to item number 11, the ICT security report policy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to highlight to members, firstly, my apologies in terms of the late circulation of the report. Just to also highlight that following a request from the author of the report and the relevant officer, there has been a request for this to be debated and voted upon in private. Primarily in terms of the concern in respect of cyber security and cyber criminality that could arise. So there is a specific provision under Schedule 12A under the Local Government Act 1972, which allows the council to discuss a matter in item where there is a concern in respect of that. So I understand if it is debated and the policy is put in respect of those cyber criminals, there is a risk to the council. So therefore, I am proposing, if approved by members, that we discuss this in private at a later point within the agenda, and we discuss the public agenda items first and foremost.
Thank you very much. Do I have any questions for Councillor Bull?
Yes, sorry, Chair. You've lost me there. I've flicked on. Which item are we actually looking at? Because the new added items I've got is just item 13.
So you have now. Are you on? Is it ModGov?
Yeah.
for the, right. It should be in there, I believe, the report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, well, just let me
For
go back
item
to
11.
the original agenda then. So we're on item 11.
Yeah.
Right, wait a minute. These seem to be all what Karen's just been on about.
It's the item 11 should be as ICT, ICT security policy.
Sorry to be a nuisance, but no, I haven't got that on mine.
Mine goes 10 to 12.
Mine goes from 10 to 12, the 13 being an added
Do you
amendment.
want to say that? Sorry. Speak. Thank you.
If you come and see Democratic Services, I think what the issue might be is you need to log in into your iPad, so you need to register and then log in, and that will enable you to see restricted items for the meeting you're attending. But if you want to drop us an email or contact us, we can talk you through that tomorrow.
But then obviously I can't vote or make a judgment on that because I have not seen it. Sorry.
Do you have a paper version? But Councillor Dobbs first.
I mean, can I raise what is possibly a point of order, since not everybody's seen this? I believe the report was not actually circulated to councillors. From reading the policy, it does apply to councillors. This seems to be not a very happy position to be in. I think we should defer it to a later meeting if that is possible.
Is that a proposal?
It can be,
Yes.
yes.
I'd second that.
Yeah, Councillor. And Councillor Butcher, I believe you had your hand up as well there.
I fully agree with Councillor Dobbs, but the point I was going to say was we did all get an email with this thing attached this morning, 10:38, including Councillor Ball and Councillor Upton. So we do actually have it, but anyway, the proposal is we defer it and take it later, and that's a good proposal.
Yeah, should we all vote on that then, please, if we could, please? Thank you. We've got a first and a seconder there for deferment, and then can I have all those for deferring the paper to a future panel. Thank you. And do I have any abstentions? Thank you very much, Councillor. Any objections?
No,
Councillor Bond.
just to be clear, Chair, I haven't got an email, and I assume that's to do with logging in. Some kind of, is that to do with the logging in procedure? Because I have not got an email.
There was an email sent out kind of with the calendar invite, and that sent as soon as the report was available to us. It was sent out via email to attend
calendar?
the meeting.
Is this in calendar?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's an email.
Yeah, cool.
Just through you, Chair, clearly there's just a few matters that we need to iron out in terms of the process, in terms of issuing late reports. So certainly, I think that's one that we will take away to ensure that we don't have a situation such as this within the meeting. So certainly, I think there's some ironing out that we need to do behind the scenes, and we will take that forward as officers.
Thanks very much. Can we also just check for all members that haven't logged, can we find out if they've logged in or not? So they can make sure that they can see all the appropriate documentation and just follow that up afterwards. That'd be great. Thank you.
We've got it.
We've got
Yeah,
it.
but obviously.
We've deferred it now, Councillor Bond. So thank you, everyone. Councillor Butcher, if you press your microphone as well off, that would be, thank you. In which case, we'll move on to item number 12 then, please, the complaints annual report. If I could, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Just to introduce this report, this is the annual report that is put before members for the year 24 into 25. So the report set out within the summary in terms of information on formal complaints made under the council's internal complaints procedures and those referred to the local ombudsman, and also those complaints against individual elected member behaviour, both at a district and at a town and parish level. The report is as printed. Happy to take any questions from the floor in respect of any particular points set out within the report.
Thank you, Aftab. Councillor Dobbs.
Thank you for the report. Section 4.3 is, I think it's the wrong way round, of the 6 alleged breaches, of the 7 6 were by town councillors, town or parish, and 1 was by a district councillor. It's actually written the other way around, as if we were in the...
Thank you, Councillor, for identifying that and happy to confirm that. Thank you.
And a second question, if I may. 10.1, are we confident that complaints are being dealt with in a timely manner? Are there any issues with the length of time that they're taking?
Just through you, Chair. As monitoring officer, I'm not aware that we are taking any significant length in terms of dealing with complaints. What I would say is that across the board, there is at times due to various matters, there can be a real delay in terms of the ability to deal with complaints in an expedient nature. As always, we will always look at our complaints procedure, looking at ways in which we can ensure that it is expedient as possible. But in terms of addressing the specific question, the answer would be no. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions from the floor? Councillor Ripton?
Just to follow up on Councillor Dobbs' question, so are we subject to any regulatory timeline on responses and breach reporting? And if so, where would that be?
Do we have a service level agreement?
Yeah. Just in respect of member complaints, there is no regulatory timeline beyond dealing with matters within a timely matter. What I would also say is that a matter that I've discussed with the chair is the ability to set up service level agreements, particularly with parish and town councils, to ensure that we can perhaps deal with matters in a more efficient way, because there will be clear timeframes and standards that parish councils as bodies and parish councillors themselves will be required to abide by. So that is a matter that we will look into.
Yeah, thank you. I think it feels inappropriate to leave that open without agreeing what timely is and a way of making that visible. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor
Yes, please. Press it again. Oh, there we go. I know I've got so confused by this machine and pressing a button. I think I might have lost it. No, we were passing through a code of conduct to parishes, as far as I knew, which we were going to ask them to sign up to. Do you know how that's been going and whether or not these complaints are within that code of conduct that we were sharing and encouraging? An LGA jobby, I think.
Yeah, just through you, Chair, Councillor Buttle. Yes, the point that you're alluding to, I think, is in relation to that wider point in terms of a service level agreement. So again, it's a matter that we can certainly look into and report back to all members of this committee.
Thank you. If I have no more questions from the floor, do I have any proposers at all? Councillor Ripton, thank you very much. Any seconders? Councillor Bond, thank you very much. And could I have all those voting for all items, please? That's unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. And on to item number 13, record keeping governance responsibilities. Thank you very much. Aftab, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. And again, just to reiterate my apologies in terms of the late circulation of the paper. Hopefully all members have had the ability to look through the report, to digest its contents. Just a couple of points that I want to raise at the outset, just to set out within the proposed recommendation. There is a typo within number 3, which sets out a corporate approach to record keeping be adopted as set out in paragraph 6.2. That should be 7.2. Also, looking through the contents of the report, and specifically in respect of section 8.1, it does say to be confirmed. That should stay in terms of approving or rejecting the proposed recommendation. And equally within section 10, Point one, this states with effect from there should be an additional wording set out with effect from the date of this report. So it is a proposal that the proposed recommendation is put into immediate effect, and hopefully members have had the opportunity to digest the report. Happy to pick up any questions from the floor.
Thank you very much, Aftab. Any questions from the floor? No. If I don't have any questions, do I propose it? Or Councillor Shelley?
Yes. Apologies, it is a question actually still. I know a lot of this is driven by the investigation that was carried out, the external investigation that was carried out last year into the Hasker Farm affair. And I know one of the concerns that came out of that was to do with the provision of information to members who weren't present at meetings which weren't formal meetings. Could you reassure us that that is covered by this? Because I'm not sure that's obvious. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shelley. And just to say that within the proposed recommendation, specifically in respect of 7.2, the bullet point 3 sets out the structure, form of detail within notes of meetings. There is a requirement of strong governance. It should take the form of a simple record of decisions taken and actions agreed, along with the list of attendees and apologies. So that sets out the structure within those particular meetings. It reinforces the spirit within the actual report that sets out the delegation down to officers in respect of operational activity and operational decisions, and also in terms of the discretion that in respect of officers set out within bullet point 2 in respect of the significance of the meeting, the potential impact of decision making, and also the relevant information that will be required if there is the requirement of exercising of delegated authority.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'm not sure that quite addresses that fairly fundamental point of the need to ensure that members who aren't able to get to a meeting of significance are informed as a matter of course about the outcome of that. I mean, it seems a very, very simple thing, and yet I can't see it quite covered by the form of words here.
Just through you, Chair. Do you want to just to elaborate upon that, Councillor Shelley? Just so I can address that to ensure that we are capturing your concerns and also the in respect of sound governance.
Yes, so this is from memory. I'm going back in my memory banks to probably about this time last year, maybe even before that actually, when we discussed some of the immediate findings from the East Midlands review of the Hasker Farm affair. And one of the ones that did stick in my mind was this question that a significant number of members weren't present at a crucial meeting, and there seemed to be no way, because the meeting wasn't minuted in the sense of a formal council meeting, there seemed to be no way of ensuring or guaranteeing that they were provided with information that those members who had been present received. Thank you.
In terms of the proposed recommendation, it does set out the discretion in terms of the significance of a meeting, so that could require additional detail in respect of the actual note-taking of the meeting, and also importantly that there is that record taking of list of attendees, the simple record of the decisions taken. So from a governance point of view, that would ensure that there is that clear paper trail. From my understanding of the Hasker Farm matter, the real concern that was put forward was the paper trail in respect of that particular matter. So what the recommendation seeks to ensure is that there is that required record keeping that is put in place.
Just one final follow-up then. I suppose, yes, I mean, it ticks the boxes in terms of what is required procedurally. I'm just trying to look at it from the point of view of a humble councillor who may, for whatever reason, not have been able to attend a significant meeting that they would have been invited to, but isn't formally recorded. So it's just making sure that the outcome from that is made available to councillors as a matter of course. Thank you.
Just through you, Chair, just going through that particular scenario. So if you were invited to a meeting, you could not attend, there would be a requirement to record your apologies, that thereafter, as set out within the recommendation, you would have a clear paper trail and a clear record of the matter that was discussed, the action that was thereafter agreed, and thereafter you would have the ability to also discuss the matter with the particular officer. I think also what needs to be a clear pillar that needs to be established, and this is one of the clear bases of the report, is distinguishing between the responsibilities of a councillor and a responsibility from officers in terms of the clear delegation that is set out, and to ensure that there isn't a disjointed overlap between the two.
Councillor, I've got Councillor Dobbs next on my sheet here. So
I was going to move it, Chair.
oh, thank you very much.
With just a couple of points. One is that with the amendment that Aftab's already mentioned in recommendation 3, that it actually should read 7.2, and there is another typo in 1.1. It should presumably be February 2024, not 2014. But with those two exceptions, I'm happy to move it. I think it's got the right light touch, actually proportionate to what happened, without tying people down to ridiculous amounts of note taking and so on. I think it is to be commended, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dobbs. Councillor Bond.
Yes, not to stand in the way of the recommendation to move the report, Chair, but just picking up on Roger's comments really, in 7.2, just the language does concern me slightly. At the reasonable discretion of officers, notwithstanding those considerations of 1, 2, and 3. We do take a view within the council that we record and live stream a whole range of meetings, and obviously minutes go alongside of those. And I would be concerned at any situation whereby that discretion is not tested actually in a meeting, and firm reasons given at that time as to why we would not be recording. In other words, taking as read that for the majority and almost all meetings of a council nature, we would of significance, we would record that in minutes. And it would be an exception not to, that would be my view. And as such, therefore, that exception should be noted in a minute to say why that exception has been incited. Just my view, and I wonder if you've got a comment on that. And I'm again not to withstand moving this forward.
Okay, just through you, Chair, just to address the first point by the councillor and welcome the question that's been put forward. In terms of meetings that take place, those formal meetings that take place, the subsequent debate, the minutes that are published, the reports that are published, those all arise from a statutory responsibility from local authorities in terms of the specific decisions that are taking place. In terms of those decisions, those meetings that take place within an informal environment, there is no statutory requirement for those meetings to be to be live streamed, to have minutes taken, and that's where there is the delegation down to officers to be able to exercise that reasonable discretion in line with the specific matter, the specific professional expertise that they will have, and that's what the report sets out. So the report, as detailed, is also supported by external legal advice, and that's a key extract from that external advice is set out within the report. And just to highlight to members, the extract and a specific sentence sets out a requirement for a comprehensive note taking of informal meetings and systems which admit and enable very detailed scrutiny of the minutes of officers' day-to-day activity is obviously antithetical, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, to good governance, especially in a time of severe constraints on officer resources. And that's where, as I said, it should be down to officers in terms of exercising that discretion based upon that particular matter and their professional expertise.
And if I could just come back on that, Chair, I think the key word there is formal, informal, and what is an informal meeting. And I think maybe the question for any meeting should take place is this a formal meeting at which significant decisions are being taken? Is it an informal meeting? Well, I'm sure, therefore, that significant decisions would not be taken at informal meetings, surely. And I just query the language of formal, informal, significant, not so significant, and how that plays out. And clearly that, before my time, clearly that did play out in a particular way, in a particular circumstance. And that would be the concern that I think is being shared just in this room.
Happy to come back on that, Chair, and appreciate. I can see some more questions coming forward. So again, welcome the questions coming forward. In terms of formal and informal meetings, my own interpretation of that is that formal meetings are those that which we are sat in now. And as I said, there's a clear statutory requirement in respect of the various rules in respect of that. Informal meetings are those that take place. For example, if you look at my calendar now, there'll be various informal meetings that took place during today, all of which would not have required formal minutes to be taken, and that goes in line with the spirit of ensuring that there is that capacity given to officers. Clearly, if there is a delegated decision that is exercised by officers that is based upon key evidence in terms of the decision maker exercising that delegated authority, that in itself may require that decision maker looking at clear minutes of meetings, clear records of meetings to understand why they are making decisions and what is that based upon. So that again falls in line with the discretion and the delegated authority that is given to officers to make that key determination based upon the overall decision that's being made.
Thanks very much. Councillor Bottle, next.
I'm already talking. Oh, brilliant. Right. Yeah, there was a definite lack of reflection at the end of that meeting that we had after Asker Farm about withdrawing it. We didn't stop and think about what it is we were doing. And it was one of those things where there was a load of people, like the leadership had a decision and they kind of made it and they were telling us and we said, yes, that's fine. And essentially we should have formalised that. And we did make a mistake. And I'm hoping we're not going to do that again. And I'm rather hoping that this phrasing in 7.2 will remind us not to do that again, because we definitely it didn't go well, and deservedly so, and we deserve to have to make apologies to a bunch of people. Now I actually had a completely different question, and it was on 4.7. Something being a matter of, at the end of 4.7, suggests that officers can ignore their responsibility to consider whether a matter is a key matter and keep records. But that's a matter of internal discipline rather than a legal duty. So obviously it isn't a matter, not a legal duty. But when we're talking about internal discipline, is this like terms and conditions of the way people behave at work? Or is it about how you feel about it? Is it the internal discipline within the person or within the organisation?
Just through you, Chair, I would say that it would be a combination of both. There should be a clear internal direction, whether given by a service manager, given by a senior officer within a particular meeting, to understand first and foremost whether the degree of record keeping that's required. That then would feed into the required internal discipline that would be embedded within that particular individual and within the overall culture of the organisation. As I said, within the report itself, it sets out setting the key pillars and the key requirements in terms of annual of sound governance. It also sets out the key distinguishment between the responsibility from councillors making strategic decisions and those decisions that are made by officers at an operational level. From a governance perspective, councillors are required to understand what governance looks like within an organisation, and there are key components within from a strategic perspective that ensures that sound governance takes place, and that's where the decisions by councillors are made. For example, within the scrutiny function, so if there is a concern from members that record keeping is not being undertaken at required level, there is the requirement for the committee to call key officers to account for what does note taking look like within the organisation, and is governance being adhered to. Equally, tonight we've approved, well, councillors have approved the annual governance statement. Again, that is the roadmap in terms of setting out whereby we're looking back in terms of the organisation in respect of governance, but also looking forward. Again, that is a mechanism to look at whether a governance is adhered to. As I said, the report is trying to set out those key boundaries between the two to ensure that there is a required capacity at both levels.
Can I just come back and ask whether or not those internal disciplines are also things we would expect of members?
Yes, my simple answer would be that members engage within your capacities with your constituents. At certain points, there may be the requirement to set out notes and record keeping to ensure that it is passed on to officers. Again, that is for members to seek direction from senior officers to the degree of which, and that feeds into the sound governance point that I'm making.
Thanks.
Councillor Shelley, sorry, first.
Thank you again, Chair. Yes, I mean, I have to say I'm not entirely happy with what I've heard about 7.2, and I'm indebted to Councillor Bond for unpicking this slightly more. I wasn't a member of the council at the time of the meeting that I think we're alluding to now, and I've actually learned something from listening to Councillor Buttle at the moment. My understanding was that meeting, which was quite a crucial one, was a briefing rather than a decision-making meeting. And I do wonder whether we should be trying to draw some distinction between the formal and the formal may not be the most important bit. It's whether or not a binding decision on the council is taken at that meeting. I mean, I would hope that binding decisions weren't taken outside of the formal structure of meetings that the council holds. Maybe we need a line in there to refer to that.
Just through you, Chair, just so I'm understanding the question correctly, what you're saying, Councillor Shelley, is that if binding decisions are being made outside of the formal structure, then there should be notes taken, or
But definitely.
yes, there should be. But are you saying that councillors should be accessing that information?
Yes, I think that should. The concern you see is if you put yourself in that position as that humble councillor who hasn't, for whatever reason, been able to attend a meeting, and they didn't realise that a binding decision was going to be made at that meeting, and that there is no note taken of it because somebody has decided it's not significant enough, so that there's a judgment call on that, then there's no way of them knowing what they've missed, if you see what I mean.
I think that would then be sort of going down the line of recording everything, and I think it's taking that discretionary judgment on what is to be recorded and what isn't to be. And if you were a member that was not missing something and required information from that meeting, you could request that. And I think this is part of that discussion that we have ongoing with officers, correct me if I'm wrong, where we define more clearly what that is and what we want, if we have that. Sorry, Councillor Bob.
Sorry, Chair. We're kind of in a little bit of a debate and
Yes, I think we're
conversation
going
about this,
into
which is fine
Which,
for me.
to be
I'm
fair, we've
happy
had
with
the
that.
proposed, yeah.
I understand that. It seems to me that there's an issue of threshold. I'm used to thresholds because of working in safeguarding for 30 years over the past 40 years. We always talk about thresholds. Has a threshold been reached? And I think it's a really plausible conversation to have at a meeting. Has a threshold been reached whereby these decisions, are either beyond us or are within the remit of what we are doing right now, and that's why I say when we're talking about significance, not so significant or informal, stroke formal, and there are some issues there. So I wouldn't want to step on this now, but I think maybe there's a further conversation to be had around some of these issues that we are raising. And just as an aside, Chair, we talked earlier about the risk register for finance, and one of the risks that are identified in the Mazars report is the ability of management to override a financial policy or a procedure, and is that is that a thing within the local authority? And of course, we would not want that to be the case, or if it was, for it to be flagged up for good reason. It's a threshold within a risk register, and I wonder if there's a similar principle here that relates to decision making and recording.
Conscious we've wandered into debate as opposed
Yes,
to, and
sorry.
conscious I wandered us there as well, so don't worry, Councillor. So do I have a seconder then if we wanted to move it into debate, or I've got a Councillor Burfitt, thank you very much. Did you want to talk on the topic?
Yes. Well, I want to cite an example of good or not so good practice followed by excellent practice. There's a project at Artists' Corner in Matlock Bath, which is just outside my ward, but just inside Matlock Bath. It's about a viewpoint, historic viewpoint of High Tor. High Tor being in Matlock, so it's looking across the river, of course. But this project has been pressed by the Civic Association and there have been various meetings held with different officers here over the past 9 or 10 years, I hasten to add, but no progress has been made. But a few years ago, there was the late Councillor David Barker from this council left a substantial bequest to the Civic Association. So I managed to, in view of that and the fact that it wouldn't involve expenditure by this council, I managed to broker a site meeting last week with the chair of Matlock Bath Parish Council and the Civic Association, and Ash Watts. 2 other officers couldn't attend, but Ash Watts came. We had a very fruitful discussion, and I think when Ash Watts heard that the project could be financed by the Civic Association, he was quite positive about it. And overnight, he produced detailed notes of that meeting and who was committed to doing what. And we've got another meeting tomorrow. In fact, Dave Turvey is going to be attending as well because Ash Watts may be indisposed. But that's an example of how note-taking, prompt note-taking and commitments by officers can successfully promote a project which hopefully will come to fruition at some time in the near future, because it's a partnership between, as you say, 7.2 third parties, officers and councillors. So I think that's an example of how progress should be made, especially with third parties, because obviously they're going to be more concerned about not getting any feedback or this successful, effective discussion with district council officers. And I think that can be an example of how positive progress can be made on something that's important to local people.
Thank you, Councillor Bertha. Councillor Bull, did you still have your point? Or maybe it was a question as well.
Yeah, it was more of a question into this. Taking notes and having minutes and the likes, where does this stand? Because I think one of what Roger was on about on one situation, I feel it was on another meeting, which was to do with the Wolds, which was an exempt. Part of it was okay, and then we closed the meeting, and there was debate then in session without the general public. But there was a said member of couldn't get to that meeting, so obviously he didn't hear any debate, what we all said or how it should be. Then there was a recorded vote supposedly, but there was never ever been any notes or any minutes to that brought out. Now I've always been, if ever there's been an exempt situation that cuts the public out, they walk out, but there are still minutes, and the members of this council should still be privy upon what happened in a closed meeting through the minutes of that. And I don't believe that has been published, and I think that's one of the issues that one of our members did have. So how do we stand in making notes on a closed meeting where members of the public aren't here, and we were in a full meeting?
I think that's a separate topic to the one that's driven this report.
It is note making.
But that doesn't
It is
mean...
note making.
Yeah, no, not debating that.
Yeah, just through you, Chair, happy to address that question. That there is a requirement in terms of all meetings to take minutes, even those items that are exempt. Those items that are exempt, the debate is taken outside of the public forum, but the decision itself is published. So happy to look into that specific matter, but I can assure all members of this committee that there will always be that publication of that decision and the subsequent minutes, and also those members that have not been present, there is the ability to have a copy of the report, the exempt report, if they do sit on a particular committee, to understand what was discussed, and also the broad notes of that would have kept beyond those actual minutes as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Good question. Anybody, any other points of debate or note, or should we put that to the vote? Oh, Councillor Butcher, I did notice you had your hand up.
I was only going to say that I'm fairly sure the minutes were taken at the next council in closed session at the end of that council. But my memory might be wrong, and I think it's a good idea that I've tablets into it. Or something.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Butler?
I've tab. If we went to bullet point 3 of 7.2 and added the phrase "and shared as necessary" to the end of it, would that pretty much deal with all these issues?
Sorry, just give me a minute.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
If I can just propose, just through you, Chair, sorry, just if I can just propose some additional wording to support that. So just to add some additional wording, and shared as necessary related to the responsibilities of a councillor, and that feeds into the advice that we've had to ensure that when councillors are accessing information, it is related to their responsibilities. Could be a ward councillor, could be a committee member, could be a member of scrutiny. So that is all interrelated to in respect of their.
Could you just read the entire point and the before and after that you're adding, just so everyone knows what they're voting on then, so it's all there, okay? If that's okay, thanks, and where it's been added, just so we're all clear.
Yeah. Just writing it out.
No, thank you very much.
Okay, just to clarify for members, bullet point 1 will remain as drawn. Bullet point 2, we have a mover. We will require a seconder in respect of that prior to the vote, but if I can just give the proposed wording. So note taking should be at the reasonable discretion of officers. based upon and not limited upon the following considerations: the significance of the meeting, point 1, point 2, the potential impact of the decisions or discussions held, point 3, in brackets, relevant information required in respect of the exercising of the delegated authority, and then thereafter we can add an additional bullet point 4, and those notes will be shared as necessary related to the responsibilities of the councillor.
Councillor Dobbs.
As proposer, I'm happy to accept that, and I think that would be entirely appropriate. Just to add that it may well be if you can't sign into ModGov, you can't get the restricted stuff, and that might be why you haven't seen those bits.
I understand that bit, but usually it has to go back to the person who's given you.
I think it's one to follow it with AFTAB maybe afterwards if you felt you've missed out on something there. We can see what's not worked, and we can understand that. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Burford. Oh, sorry. Is there a seconder for that? For that amendment? Thank you very much, Councillor. In which case, I will put it to the vote. All of those for the amended documentation with all the recommendations previously put. All those for. And all those against? And any abstentions? Thanks very much. Thank you all. Thank you very much, AFTAB. And thank you for waiting patiently. But health and safety budget increase, if we could please. Thank you very much. Go for it.
Thank you, Chair. This report is to request an increase in the health and safety budget. You'll see by £24,300. The current budget is £5,700. This follows the recruitment of our health and safety lead officer in February of this year. You'll see in 2.4 and 2.6 a number of identified training and equipment examples. We're not asking members to approve those items specifically, but it's just examples of where some of the money may go. We have added the control in the safety committee format that we still operate, that there will be a consultation spends over £500 just to ensure that the money is being spent in best use for the whole of the council, and if any other departments feel that there might be something that could benefit them, we could adjust where we've identified potential spends. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. And can I also add that as part and parcel of our previous audit work, I believe if you've completed the audit as well, the health and safety audit.
Yeah, through you, Chair, the audit was completed and signed off today, so that's gone back.
Thank you very much. And that was one of the items that was read earlier on, so that's just to flag that for members. That was all. Thank you, Dave. Any questions from the floor? Councillor Bull.
Just clarifying, we were saying it's another big figure. One, is it calculated that we've got it in the reserves to be able to use? And it says to all work members of and health and safety. I know there's lots of I don't know what the word is, where liability to everybody comes into it. So obviously you've got the training of the work staff. Is there going to be some training in towards the members as well on this health and safety?
So there's two questions there.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Karen, do you want to assure Councillor Bull on the surety of the client? So we'll come to the outputs from Dave. Thank you.
Yes, I don't know the precise figure, but there's over £3 million available in the general reserve.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In terms of training, it depends what the item is. So the health and safety policy, itself, we won't train on, but we will send round to councillors and staff so they can see. If you record recently, we did do the training, or we arranged with the police who came in and did some training on what's acceptable on social media and when to report crime or abusive behaviour by residents or local constituents, and anything that comes forward that we feel will benefit members, then they would be included opportunity of training. We wouldn't generally carry out like manual handling training or anything like that for members, or which is what most of this refers to. But if there is any act training that's identified that would be useful for members, or a policy change that members need to be aware of, then we would include members.
Thank you. Any further comments or any further questions from the floor? Thank you. Do I have a proposer at all? Councillor Dobbs, thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ripton, thank you very much. All those for this item, please. Recommendations? Thank you very much. That's unanimous vote. Thank you all. And then on to the final item, the review of the format of the joint consultative group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. I'm happy to give a brief overview of the report. I'm conscious it's not a familiar report that will come on a regular basis. This report came from the JCG that we had in December at the end of last year, where we'd not had a JCG over that civic year. That was the first one, and there was dialogue between members and officers on refreshing the format and looking at what items we could be bringing to JCG. So we went away, looked at some ideas. Officers gave us, members and officers looked at the ideas, what we'd got, and from there I've produced a report which highlights, I think, that it is an essential forum to continue within the council structure. It enables that dialogue between officers, members and unions. The defined purpose is to have a consultation mechanism in place to consult on any locally agreed terms that we have and other employment matters. In the last year there's been minimal change that's required consultation, therefore the quarterly meetings have been cancelled. So the ideas raised by members have given CLT opportunity to review the purpose of the group, consider how we can share feedback to members that are issues important to staff. It's also been timely to ensure the objectives of the group are clear, and I've covered that in 3.3 of the report. As part of the report, we've reviewed the terms and terms of reference, which are Appendix 1, and then Appendix 2 just adds to that current terms of reference by explaining who the membership should be and the agreement of the frequency of the meeting. So the report was shared with JCG members on the 17th of June, and it's presented to committee for note and seek approval of the revised terms of reference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members? Thank you very much. The only one I was going to ask was on the report to the Governance and Resources Committee. Does it take the form of what we're with now, if that makes, or is there some kind of KPIs or something that you come back to us with?
So that's the form of the report that went.
Thank you. Do I have a proposer at all? Councillor Ripton and second Councillor Bond. And could I have all those four, please? Thank you very much, everyone. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. And that brings to a close the agenda items for this evening. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.